Welcome to the SmartKeys podcast. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something that I think really affects almost everyone in the modern business world. It's that feeling of conquering massive project overwhelm.
Oh, yeah.
You know the scene, right? You get handed this huge mandate. Maybe it's a global product overhaul or some complex cross-functional thing. And the sheer scale of it, all the dependencies, it
Yeah.
just feels like a non-starter.
It's that moment ambition just stalls. And all that complexity creates this crippling anxiety. For professionals today, these massive tasks just become noise, burnout,
Yeah.
and a total distraction.
Exactly. So our mission today is to look at a pretty surprising source for the best solutions. We're going to be extracting some industry-tested planning and delivery techniques from the blueprints of the world's largest infrastructure projects.
Yeah, we're talking about things like the Elizabeth Line in London or the California High-Speed Rail. And the goal is to translate those principles directly into actionable strategies for your team.
I find that so compelling that the answers to, business productivity might actually be hiding in construction.
Well, they are the true masters of scale.
Yeah.
And of long timelines.
Yeah.
And just tangled, high-stakes dependencies.
Right. And the core insight we've pulled from the source material is this. The techniques they use to manage these, multi-billion-dollar projects are fundamentally about one thing.
Reducing uncertainty.
Reducing uncertainty at every single step.
Precisely. If you look at the modern business landscape, complexity isn't an accident. It's the default setting. So the key to navigating it is translating that overwhelming multi-year vision into a practical, predictable process.
And that predictability demands ruthless clarity.
Ruthless clarity on roles, on dependencies, and most importantly, on those measurable key performance indicators, the KPIs, that everyone actually agrees on.
So for a leader managing, say, a complex software development effort or a big marketing launch, the lesson is foundational. You have to stop seeing the project as a single, terrifying monolith. Instead, you break that massive scope into extremely short, visible, and testable milestones. That steady drip of progress, when you make it visible, it's the ultimate defense against burnout. And it's the most reliable way to protect that crucial bandwidth.
Okay, so let's unpack that. The first mandate here is that you have to define what success looks like before you even start planning.
Yes, before you sketch out a single task.
If we can't articulate the specific change that happens in the world when our work actually ships, then we're just managing activities, right? Not outcomes.
And this is where the rigor of construction really shines through. We can adopt OKRs, objectives and key results, but with this foundational twist.
What's the twist?
In infrastructure planning, these objectives are often almost contractual. They're legally binding milestones that dictate funding and political support.
Wow, okay.
That forces a level of rigor that, frankly, software teams often lack. You have to convert those vague aims into outcome-focused objectives. Who benefits and how, and make sure every key result is numeric, time-bound, and completely verifiable. I really appreciate that focus on verification. The material we looked at emphasizes anchoring those key results to direct user value.
Yes.
Using metrics like throughput or cycle time or system uptime. It shifts the whole conversation away from just, checking off tasks.
It moves it towards proving you delivered measurable operational value.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where you set up the guardrails for the entire project.
Yes, exactly. Before you break ground, you have to set the non-negotiables, the immovable constraints on time, budget, compliance, and quality.
Because if you don't document those trade-offs before the work starts,
then every decision made under pressure will be inconsistent.
And
that guarantees expensive rework later on.
But doesn't that raise a flag? Doesn't adding all this rigorous pre-planning and documentation slow everything down? Doesn't it risk turning a fast-moving business into one of those slow-moving bureaucracies we're studying?
That's a fair challenge.
Okay.
But the goal isn't bureaucracy, it's predictability. And predictability is the ultimate accelerator in the long run. The actionable step here is to make sure every single requirement is testable, with a clear owner and a data source attached. If you can't test it, it's not a requirement.
It's a wish.
It's a wish, exactly. By defining that scope and those testable requirements early, you set reliable baselines for cost and schedule, which prevents all that waste from constant scope churn later.
So once we've established those clear guardrails and defined success with OKRs, how do we physically take a multi-year effort and break it down into phases a team can actually execute without, drowning?
We use the structure that these massive projects use: concept, design, build, and launch. And crucially, each phase has to act as a clear progress gate. It has to deliver a specific, verifiable set of documents or functionality.
And that removes uncertainty before you commit resources to the next, more expensive phase.
Right, and this is where the work breakdown structure, or WBS, becomes so critical.
And the material really stresses organizing the WBS by deliverable, so drawings, verified code, permits, not just vague tasks. Why is that distinction so important?
Because tasks are transient, they come and go. But deliverables are tangible. When you organize by deliverable, you make it crystal clear what must be handed off and accepted by the next team.
I see.
If the deliverable is foundation permits secured, you know exactly what that output looks like. There's no ambiguity. Look at the big projects. The Elizabeth line didn't open all at once.
Yo.
The central section, those 42 kilometers of tunnel, opened in May 2022. But that was followed by years of staged integrations, allowing teams to test and refine connections segment by segment.
That phased approach is really the ultimate minimum viable product lesson for any team, isn't it?
It is.
You don't try to deliver the whole 20-year vision on day one. You deliver testable, usable segments. You see it with the Grand Paris Express, too, with its delivery stretching out to 2030. It shows that staged, intentional delivery is the only way to manage that kind of complexity.
And to make sure every little chunk of work is actually usable, you need an ironclad definition of done.
So acceptance criteria, sign-offs, all the documentation.
All of it, for every single deliverable. A key process tip here is to separate discovery, what we should build, from execution, which is actually building it.
To limit context switching.
Yes, and you always size your work packages to fit within standard sprint windows,
Yeah.
but you dedicate separate time purely for integration and handoffs. You can't just hope it fits.
Okay, let's talk about scheduling. Pacing is everything when you're fighting overwhelm. You need that internal momentum, but you also need to maintain external alignment. So how do you blend short sprints for speed with those longer milestones for, say, executive alignment?
Well, the short sprints are essential for the engineering teams. Shipping small, testable segments creates that internal fire, that momentum.
Yeah.
But you map the major milestone reviews quarterly. And those quarterly reviews are vital for leadership, for regulators, for any external communities to stay aligned with the project. This kind of rigorous staging massively reduces political and funding risk.
You can really see that in the big infrastructure examples. The California high-speed rail's ultimate goal is that incredible 2-hour, 40-minute trip from LA to SF.
Yeah, the big vision.
But they focus on opening usable segments early on, just like the Second Avenue subway showed its value by opening Phase 1 back in 2017. It's about demonstrating value and learning as you go, not waiting for some perfect finish line years away.
And this brings us directly to respecting reality in your scheduling. You have to stop relying on optimism.
Uh-oh.
The biggest lesson from these mega projects is you have to plan buffers where risk is real. You size your schedule floats, that's the time flexibility you have, for external factors like permits or third-party approvals based on historical data, not on hope.
Okay, wait, let's pause on that term float. For listeners who are more used to agile software development, how should they think about float and the critical path?
Sure. Think of the critical path as the single longest sequence of dependent tasks that dictates the entire project's end date. If any single task on that path slips by a day, the whole project slips by a day.
Got it. The spine of the project.
Exactly. The float is your time contingency for any task that's not on the critical path. It's the amount of delay a task can have without messing up the final deadline. Your job is to fiercely protect the critical path by managing those high-risk activities.
So an example.
For a team launching a product that needs legal sign-off, if past reviews have taken 6 weeks, you budget 8 weeks of float for that approval, no matter how fast legal promises they'll move this time.
That is extremely practical. It turns risk management from like a guessing game into a data-driven process.
Absolutely. And to keep everyone honest, you have to measure schedule health weekly. Simple, no-noise indicators, planned versus actual progress, burn-down rates, and blockers cleared. This gives you a leading indicator of problems long before they become disasters.
This is where it gets really strategic for business application, turning all that stakeholder noise into coordinated action. The communication rules you see on these massive projects are so surgically tailored.
You have to be. You segment your audience and tailor the message ruthlessly. Executives, they get high-level outcomes, risks, and decisions quarterly.
And the teams?
They need tactical next steps, execution details, and clear blockers, weekly or even per sprint.
And then there's the public or regulators.
Right. They need plain language impacts, timelines, and delivered benefits. They don't care about your sprint velocity. They care about when the final product is actually usable for them.
The Hudson Yards project in New York is a brilliant lesson here. They used frequent visual progress cues, dashboards, site photos, drone footage to reduce friction and build trust.
Yes.
So instead of stakeholders reading dense status reports, they could literally see the momentum. That visual evidence just removes so much political uncertainty.
It proves capability, and it manages expectations instantly. That kind of transparency unlocks faster decisions and just cuts through the noise.
Now let's switch to the tech side. How are these mega projects using technology to shrink uncertainty in ways that our listeners could emulate with, modern software stacks?
They're layering really sophisticated models. The core tech stack combines BIM, that's building information modeling for real-time design coordination, with live dashboards for visibility, and even AI scenario planning to model potential delays.
And BIM isn't just a 3D model, right?
No, that's the critical insight. It's a unified data environment that forces coordination. It automatically detects clashes, like a pipe running through a ventilation duct, before they become incredibly costly mistakes on site.
So the business parallel might be having a single source of truth for all product requirements, and using integrated planning tools to simulate dependencies, catching integration errors before a line of code is even merged.
That's it. I love the idea of using digital twins to simulate operations before a handoff, or AR and VR prototyping to validate construction sequences.
It's basically risk retirement through simulation.
You test the product under real operational load before a user ever touches it. And this ties perfectly into the financial strategy.
Budgeting in slices.
Exactly. You don't fund a 10-year project up front. You slice the budget so each phase delivers visible, measurable value and retires specific, known risks.
That sounds like a sophisticated version of venture funding, but for internal projects.
It is.
You commit, say, $10 million to a pilot, you retire the biggest operational risks, prove the ROI, and only then do you unlock the next larger tranche of funding.
Precisely. Look at Dubai's Al Maktoum development. They staged passenger capacity growth explicitly to allow revenue to catch up with the investment. The key action is this: prioritize the line items that retire the biggest risks first. And, crucially, tie your incentives to outcomes, the delivered value, not just hours logged.
So this whole deep dive really shows that the lessons from these massive global efforts, the modular assembly of the International Space Station or the staged testing of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, they apply directly to any complex business problem you're tackling right now.
They absolutely do. The central lesson is that conquering complexity requires radical decomposition and uncertainty reduction. When you're managing a big program, you have to shrink your executive reporting down to reliable, objective signals.
No drama.
No drama metrics. Throughput, cycle time, burn down, and the often overlooked metric of earned value. These reveal progress and problems objectively, and they guide immediate action instead of generating confusion.
So after absorbing all this, what's the one single focused action a listener should take away from this?
Look at your current major effort. Find the smallest single focused milestone that, when you deliver it, proves value and reduces the most significant risk. Then assign undeniable ownership to that one piece, resource it safely, and just ship it.
Start building a monolith.
Start building a string of verifiable low-risk wins. That makes the next step simple, and it makes momentum feel inevitable.
That is a powerful principle to leave everyone with. And here's a provocative thought for you to mull over this week. How can you apply modular thinking, breaking down a major organizational effort into independent, fully testable modules to remove all the uncertainty before that final and potentially devastatingly costly integration phase? Think about what you could test completely independently to de-risk the grand finale.
If you get that right, the answer could dramatically change your entire project timeline and your funding philosophy.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into strategic productivity and project management. We hope these hard-won lessons from the world's biggest projects help you conquer your biggest professional challenges.
And if you want to dive even deeper into the specific planning techniques we've talked about, you can read the full article, Tackling Big Projects, which was authored by Felix Römer. The link, as always, can be found in the show notes.
Thank you for tuning in to the SmartKeys podcast. Be sure to subscribe for more insights on the future of work and productivity hacks. We'll see you next time.